Bear Finds a Friend by Hans de Beer. Lars the little polar bear was very lonely. He gazed across the cool blue ocean. He wished he had a friend to go play with. There he is, looking out at the ocean. When he got home, Lars' mother could tell right away that something was wrong. "Why are you so sad?" she asked. "Because I don't have no friends here," said Lars glumly. "Don't worry," said his mother. "One day you'll find somebody to play with." The next morning, when Lars went for a walk, he thought he saw another little polar bear standing next to a big wooden box. "I should go over there and say hello," thought Lars, but when he got closer, he realized that the polar bear was made of wood. There it is, and walking over and looking at the box. Lars smelled food, so he walked in the box to see what it was. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, and the door on the end of the box slammed shut. Lars was trapped. It was so dark inside the box that Lars couldn't see a thing. He threw himself against the door, but it wouldn't open. Lars sat in the box for hours. He thought about his parents and how worried they must have been when he didn't come home. Suddenly, he heard voices outside. The box began to move, and Lars felt it being lifted up. Lars was very scared. The box bumped and up and down and rocked back and forth. Another hour. Then finally it stopped moving. Lars cried out, but no one was at the door. Then the box began to shake, and Lars heard a loud roar. He felt as if he was being pushed up and backwards and there was a funny feeling in his tummy. Then the feeling had passed. Lars was now very tired, so he curled up in the box and fell asleep. The next thing Lars knew, there was a loud crash, and at last the door to the box busted open. Lars found himself in a strange place, filled with many wooden boxes and lots of strange smells. And that's when he fell out of the box. "Hey, little polar bear, come over here," said a deep, friendly voice. Lars looked up and was startled to see a huge walrus. "What are you doing here?" asked Lars. "I was trapped, just like you," said the walrus. "The owl says that we're being taken to a zoo." "What's a zoo?" asked Lars. "I don't know," grunted the walrus, "and I don't want to find out. Do you think you could lift the latch of this cage?" That's the latch that the walrus wants Lars to open. Lars banged on the latch with his paws, and finally it swung open. The walrus lumbered out of his cage, and together they started to free all of the other animals. As the cages were opened, Lars was surrounded by many animals he had never seen before. But the biggest surprise came out of the last box, a little brown bear whose name was Bee. And there's Lars looking at Bee down there. The walrus was very clever, and soon he had found a way to escape, but the animals were so happy to be free that they ran away, leaving the slow walrus behind. "Wait for me!" he cried after them. When Lars and Bee heard the walrus, they stopped, turned around, and went back to help their friend. "I'm sorry we ran off," said Lars. "We started to go together, and we'll finish together." By the time the three of them reached out into the woods, it was dark. They had barely escaped being caught in the bright glare of the searchlights. When they were deep in the woods and out of danger, Lars and Bee and the walrus fell fast asleep. The next morning, when Lars woke up, he was surprised to hear Bee crying. "What's wrong?" asked Lars. "We're not in any danger anymore." "It's my parents," sobbed Bee. "They were captured earlier, and I'll probably never see them again." "I'm sorry," said Lars, but then he had an idea. "Why don't you come home with me?" he said happily. "You can be my sister." "But won't your parents be upset because I'm brown?" "Of course not," said Lars. "Bears are bears." When the walrus woke up, the three of them talked about how they would get home. "If we could find a river," said the walrus, "I could carry the two of you on my back." While the walrus talked, Bee noticed some bees flying. Around a tree. "I'm hungry," said Bee, turning to Lars. "Will you help me get some honey?" Lars had never seen the bees before, and he was afraid he hid behind some bushes with the walrus. And that's Lars and the walrus hiding. Lars and the walrus liked the honey very much, and as soon as they had eaten, the three friends set off to find a river. As they walked along, Lars couldn't believe how many trees there were in a forest. Luckily, Bee had a good sense of smell, and she quickly led them to a small stream. The walrus jumped right in and rolled around. "This feels great," he said happily. "Climb on my back and let's get her going." The walrus swam along and the stream turned into a river. Lars told Bee all about his wonderful home. Then Lars noticed a familiar smell. We're coming to a city," he said. "I visited a city once. We must be very careful. Let's stop until it gets dark." While the three of them sat on the river bank and waited for the sun to go down, Lars told them about his adventure in the city. "I met some very nice cats," he said. "But everything is very dirty. My home is much better than a city." The next day, Lars and the walrus recognized the smell of the salty ocean. We're almost home," Lars said to Bee. "Not quite," said the walrus. "We still have far to go, and first we have to pass through those big gates up ahead." Soon they had found themselves in the middle of the ocean. A storm started, and the waves were getting bigger and bigger. "Hang on tight," said the walrus. And there you can see they're all very afraid. At last, the three friends arrived in the Arctic. Bee stared at the strange landscape. She had seen snow before, but had never seen so much of it. The walrus dropped Lars and Bee off near Lars' home, and it was time to say goodbye. "Thanks for waiting for me," said the walrus. "I would have never made it without you." "And we would have never made it without you," said Lars. As the walrus swam away, Lars and Bee set out to find Lars' parents. Bee was having trouble walking on the ice and snow. She kept slipping and sliding. Suddenly, Lars saw his parents and ran up to greet them. Bee slid along behind him. "Where have you been?" said his mother. "We were so worried about you." Lars quickly told his parents about his latest adventure and explained that Bee hadn't been separated from her parents. "She's afraid that you won't let her stay because she is brown," said Lars. "That's silly," said Lars' father. "Bears are bears." Lars' mother gave Bee a big hug. "You're a very beautiful bear," she said. "You can stay with us as long as you like." Lars was very happy. "I can't wait to get home," he said. "There are so many things that I want to show my new friend." I think that this book is very important because it teaches two really good lessons about friendship. And the first one is that we should treat anyone who may be different or may have a different idea than us the same, and we should still like them even if they're different, and that doesn't mean that they're not a good person. Just like how Lars treated Bee, he still wanted to be her friend even though she was a lot different than him, and they were both willing to help each other out. And the other lesson is a lesson of loyalty and helping out your